Hey everybody, this is meteorologist Brad Panovich with your Ski Southeast forecast for the upcoming winter. It is good news. You can actually get excited about this upcoming winter because, let's face it, the last couple of winters, it's been kind of a rough go of it. We've had some pretty mild conditions, though every season you always have some good spurts in there. But this year, I think we got a legitimate chance of having probably the most decent weather, at least for skiing in the Southeast, we've had in quite some time. So let's get right to the details of this. We're going to start first with the winter forecast checklist, things I look at for the upcoming winter. El Nino or La Nina. El Nino, or La Nina. We are looking at this winter, we're looking for El Nino. Now, El Nino is a big deal in the Southeast. I'll get more into that. October snow in Asia, below average. Arctic sea ice, those are other things I look at. Those are below average. I'll show you the checklist here. So El Nino, we're in a weak El Nino. That's good news for cold and wet in the Southeast. October snowfall was kind of a mixed signal, but it was a little bit above average, especially compared to last year. That would hint at a warm winter. Now, Arctic sea ice near record lows, that also hints at warm and wet. Climate change and sea surface temperature still above average. That would lend itself to warm and wet. The one thing you notice for sure in this checklist, the wet signals are off the charts. We've got a lot of recurring signals for very wet weather. Now, the warm pattern, you would think it would be warm, but I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit here. I think we're going to have enough wild swings and enough wet weather that it might actually keep temperatures closer to average, maybe just a hair below average. Now, for those not familiar with what El Nino and La Nina is when we have cooler than average water temperature in the Pacific. That's what we had last winter. This winter, we have the opposite. We have warmer than average water temperature here in the Pacific. And this is a really key thing to look at for our upcoming winter because when we have an El Nino, we tend to get a very active Pacific jet stream. Now, in the Southeast, this is great news. This isn't always good news for skiers in the Northern Rockies and Western Canada, but for the Southeast, we get a ton of storm systems coming like that, and we typically have cool and wet conditions across the Southeast. Now, across the Ohio Valley, tends to be dry. The cold air tends to get bottled up here, but here's the thing. It's usually warm in Western Canada. If you get an active storm track like this, and the cold air is in Eastern Canada, it's a little easier to sync up this southern track with eastern intrusions of Arctic air as opposed to it coming right down the plains like we typically do. So this is why I'm hedging my bets a little bit on the storm track this winter being favorable for maybe slightly cooler than average temperatures, because one of the things we've noticed as Arctic sea ice becomes a little bit less dense and it becomes near record lows, the jet stream tends to buckle quite a bit here in the eastern U.S. during winters where we don't have a bunch of sea ice. That's because we get blocking here in the North Atlantic. Warm air surges up into the Arctic, and that actually forces the cold air to come south. So keep an eye on that in this upcoming winter. So here's my forecast. You can see the above average rainfall expected across the Southeast. Now, precipitation, this includes everything: snow, sleet, rain, but primarily rain. Remember, in the Southeast, still our primary winter weather system tends to bring a cold rain. Now, temperature-wise, this is good news, I think, in some ways. You're going to look at this first and say, well, it looks like we're going to be near average, and that's the area in gray. But here's the thing. It's been so mild the last couple of winters, near average temperatures would actually feel pretty cool. And if you couple that with an active storm track, the chances of getting above average snowfall, I think, are quite high. So here's my snow and ice forecast for the upcoming winter. I actually think the mountains of the Southeast will be slightly above average snowfall. And the reason I think that is because I do expect an active storm track here off the East Coast, and that would put the mountains of the Southeast on that northwest side, which gives us two chances for snow. One, that northwest quadrant, that deformation zone, or on that western side, and also as the low moves up the coast, we tend to get the wraparound northwest flow. So the combination of the two, I think, are going to give us above average snowfall here in the Southeast. Now, I'm a little more confident this will be better for the Carolina resorts, but I still think up in West Virginia, Virginia, and Maryland, it's looking at a pretty good setup. Because remember, that storm track across the Southeast is a very favorable storm track for us. And if you had to ask me one thing, if I could have consistent cold or consistent storm track, In the southeast with snowmaking, maybe you want the consistent cold, but if you like natural snow, the active storm track is actually a little bit better because it's easier to sync up a bunch of storms with cold air every once in a while than get a bunch of cold air and have no storms at all, which seems to happen when we get a ton of cold air. But the good news is, especially up in West Virginia, I mean, Snowshoe's got this amazing snowmaking operation now. So I think this is going to be a great season in the Southeast, especially compared to the last 3 or 4 years. And if you've seen the pattern so far this autumn, it's got to encourage you because we've seen cold temperatures now and we've seen that active storm track. I almost feel like we're wasting it right now in November. If you were to take the pattern right now and shift it to December, oh my, would it be amazing. Of course, this is a long-range forecast. Things will change week to week, and you can get those updates from me and everybody else here at skisoutheast.com. As always, I'd like to say, keep thinking snow, and let's look forward to a great season.